Some nights, you don't realize how dangerous a simple game can become. It's October, the leaves crunched under our feet with every step, and the chill in the air made my skin prickle in ways that didn't feel natural. My siblings and I were visiting my mom's apartment for the weekend. I have two younger brothers, Eli and Mike, and an older sister, Jess. Mom and Dad had been divorced for 2 years, and Dad insisted we visit her whenever possible. The apartment was in a part of town most people avoided. Buildings crowded together, alleys narrow and dark, and a sense of emptiness lingered even when the streets were technically full. The place had character, but it also had shadows that seemed to move when you weren't looking. That evening, Zach and Chi-Chi, two of our neighbors from downstairs, came over. Zach had a mischievous look on his face and suggested we play hide-and-seek outside. Normally, we would play in broad daylight, but October nights were perfect for spookiness. By 9 p.m., night had fully claimed the parking lot. The orange streetlights flickered in the distance, casting long, sinister shadows. Jess, Zach, Chi-Chi, Mike, Eli, and I all gathered. We played the usual bubblegum in a dish game to decide who would seek first. Zach was chosen, and everyone ran to find their hiding spots. Jess and I darted toward the alley behind the building, a place we rarely went. Garbage bins lined the walls, bags stacked high, and the shadows seemed thicker here than anywhere else. We crouched behind the largest bin, peering into the blackness of the alley. At first, the night felt alive with excitement, the kind you feel when a game is playful and thrilling. But after a few minutes, a creeping sense of unease settled in. I whispered to Jess, maybe we hid too well. She laughed softly, her breath visible in the cold night air. It's fine. They'll find us eventually. We shuffled behind some more garbage, trying to stay out of sight. Then, something at the far end of the alley caught my attention. A figure. Tall, unnatural in height, as if it had been stretched somehow. My heart skipped a beat. I nudged Jess, pointing toward the shadowy figure. At first, it stood perfectly still. Then the hair caught the light from the street lamp. It was an afro, colored in bright, unnatural shades. And the worst part, the costume. It wasn't just colorful, it was a clown. Not a Halloween clown, not a kid's costume. Something wrong. The figure didn't move, yet it seemed to radiate awareness, staring directly at us. Jess's hand gripped mine. "We need to go," she whispered. We slowly backed away, keeping our eyes on the clown. That's when Chi-Chi screamed. We all turned to see another figure, taller than the first, with long, green hair, also in a clown costume. This wasn't a prank or some Halloween joke. They were real, and they were watching us. The fear hit like a wave. Adrenaline surged through my body as we ran toward the apartment. We found Mike and Chi-Chi near the parking lot, confused but unharmed. I pointed toward the alley, and both of them froze. The clowns had moved closer, waving at us, almost beckoning. That's when I realized how wrong everything had become. "Run!" I shouted. We sprinted, hearts hammering, feet slipping on scattered leaves. Upstairs, Eli met us at the apartment. Mom hugged us tightly, worry etched in her face. Eli explained he had seen something while hiding in the courtyard. Another clown, taller and more menacing, observing him. Night didn't end with safety. Hours later, parched and foolishly brave, I walked to the kitchen to grab water. A faint knocking at the window made me freeze. My heart pounded as I lifted the blinds. There, pressed against the glass, was the first clown, eyes black pits in the shadowed face. I screamed. Mom came running, but when I turned back to show her, the clown had vanished. That night, alleyways became nightmares, and hide-and-seek became a memory of terror rather than fun. Over the next few weeks, my siblings and I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was someone mentally unstable or a pair of thrill-seekers trying to scare kids. But no matter how much we reasoned, the memory lingered. The tall figures, the blacked-out eyes, the way they had silently, methodically watched us. One evening, Jess and I tried to revisit the alley just to see if it was real. Nothing. Only the empty, rust-orange glow of the streetlights and the distant sounds of the city. But I'll never forget the cold dread The way your stomach drops when you realize the playful game of childhood has been replaced by something genuinely horrifying. Even now, years later, the mere mention of clowns makes my heart rate spike. And whenever I walk past a shadowed alley, I can't help but glance over my shoulder, half expecting to see them again. The truth is, the clowns might not have been real, or maybe they were. But what I do know is that night left an impression that time can't erase. Childhood innocence, once shattered, leaves a lingering fear, a memory of a moment when play turned to panic, when the shadows you thought were safe became something else entirely. I've been terrified of that house for as long as I can remember. Every time I passed it, my stomach turned, my palms grew sweaty, and my heart started hammering like it wanted to escape my chest. It wasn't just any house. It was the kind that made you stop in your tracks, even if only for a second, to stare at it from across the street. The paint was peeling, the windows grimy and cracked, and the garden had long since given up on anyone trying to care for it. I was in 6th grade when this particular chapter of fear began. My school was directly across from the house. Every day, as I walked home, the house loomed there, silently daring me to look. My friends would often make fun of me for being scared of a building, but I couldn't explain it. Something about that house wasn't right. It all started in the second week of October. Usually, I had my friends with me when walking home, but this week they were staying after school for activities. That meant I had to walk home alone, and that's when I first noticed it. A figure appeared in one of the upstairs windows. I froze mid-step. My brain screamed at me to ignore it, to tell myself it was a trick of the shadows, but my eyes betrayed me. The figure, tall, lanky, and motionless, stared directly at me. Its face was hidden in shadow, but I could feel its gaze, the way it pinned me to the spot. I forced myself to keep walking, heart pounding, trying to convince myself it was nothing. The next day, the same thing happened. And the day after that. Every time I passed the house, that figure was there, watching. I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. The features were obscured, but the presence was undeniable. I told my friends about it, hoping for reassurance. They laughed. It's probably a Halloween decoration or someone playing a prank, they said. I wanted to believe them, and part of me did, but another part of me knew that what I was seeing wasn't normal. A week before Halloween, things escalated. I was walking home, just like always, when I noticed the silhouette standing on the porch. I froze. Unlike the previous times, this figure wasn't hidden in shadow. It was out in the open, staring at me. My heart began to race. My feet wanted to move, but my body felt glued to the ground. And then it moved. I can't describe it fully. It didn't walk in the way humans walk. It glided, almost floating across the porch, its movements smooth and unnatural. The wind rustled the dead leaves around its feet, but the sound of its approach was almost inaudible. My body finally reacted, and I bolted. I ran toward the nearest alley, ducking behind a dumpster that smelled of rot and mildew. My chest heaved, my legs trembling. I could hear it behind me, muttering words I couldn't understand. Its voice was low, distorted, and filled with an intent I didn't want to comprehend. I stayed crouched, listening to its breathing and footsteps. Each one sounded closer, heavier, more deliberate. My mind raced with thoughts of what it could do if it found me. Was it going to hurt me? Kill me? Or was it something far worse? Something I couldn't even imagine? After what felt like an eternity, the sound of footsteps faded. I waited, trembling, until I was sure the coast was clear. Then I ran the rest of the way home, adrenaline keeping me upright. I burst through the front door and told my parents what had happened. My father, alarmed, called the police immediately. The officers arrived within 20 minutes. I explained everything. The figure, the way it moved, the way it watched me. They took notes, asked questions, and promised to investigate. The next day, they returned with news that shook me to my core. Nobody lived in that house. It had been vacant for years. The explanation from the police was mundane. They suggested it could have been a homeless person or a squatter trying to scare a child. But even at 11 years old, I knew what I had seen was not ordinary. The way it moved, the way it observed me, the unnatural stillness before it glided, it didn't fit any rational explanation. From that moment on, Every walk past that house became a battle against fear. Even as I grew older, the memory stayed. I glanced at the windows, imagining the figure still standing there, waiting for me. The house itself seemed alive. Windows reflected moonlight like dark eyes. The doors groaned as if whispering secrets. Leaves rustled, carrying a faint laughter that I could never place. My imagination often tried to fill in the blanks, creating scenarios worse than the truth. It wasn't just the house. Sometimes, I would hear footsteps behind me on empty streets, shadows moving in the corner of my vision. Each time, I would freeze, heart hammering, expecting the figure to be there. Every creak of a door, every whisper of the wind, sent shivers down my spine. Years later, even as an adult, the memory lingers. I avoid abandoned houses, steer clear of empty streets at night, and never walk home alone after dark. The terror of that October has never fully left me. I don't know if the figure was human, supernatural, or a product of my youthful imagination heightened by fear. But I know one thing: it existed, and it chose me to witness it. Even now, when I see a vacant, decaying house across the street, I feel that same chill, the same pulse of fear that made me hide behind a dumpster all those years ago. And though I've tried to rationalize it, try to tell myself it was nothing, I can't. I'll never be able to erase the feeling of being watched by something that wasn't supposed to be there. Halloween has never been fun for me. Pumpkins and costumes, once symbols of joy, are now reminders of that terrifying time. I pass houses with peeling paint and broken windows quickly, my eyes darting for signs of movement, my body tense with anticipation. Because somewhere in the shadows, behind the empty windows and behind the overgrown gardens, I know the figure waits. And though I hope I never see it again, I fear that one day I might. It was a crisp October afternoon when my friends and I decided to visit the pumpkin patch. The air was cold, filled with the earthy smell of fallen leaves, and the sky was tinged with the fading orange of the setting sun. I remember feeling a strange sense of nostalgia, a perfect mix of excitement and unease, though I didn't understand why at the time. The pumpkin patch wasn't far from our school, just a short walk down a winding path lined with thick trees. Families milled about, kids ran laughing through the rows of pumpkins, and the smell of baked good from a small vendor filled the air. Everything seemed normal. Everything seemed safe. We grabbed a small wagon to carry our pumpkins and set off, scanning the patch for the perfect pumpkin. Rows of orange and yellow stretched before us, some perfectly round, others lopsided, and all waiting for someone to claim them. It started as a simple dare. My friend Kevin pointed to a massive pumpkin at the back of the patch, near a wooded area where the trees were thicker and shadows longer. "I dare you to pick that one," he said, grinning. I laughed and accepted. "You're on," I replied, already feeling a chill creep up my spine as we walked toward the woods. The path narrowed, the chatter from the main area faded, and the trees grew denser. The sunlight filtered through the leaves in strange, jagged patterns, casting long shadows that seemed to shift as we moved. And that's when I noticed it, a figure standing beyond the pumpkin row, near the edge of the trees. At first, I thought it was a scarecrow. Its posture was stiff, its hat tilted, and its arms extended like a cross. But something was off. The body was too thin, too unnaturally proportioned to be a mere decoration. The hat moved slightly, like someone was breathing beneath it. My stomach twisted into knots. "Do you see that?" I whispered to Kevin, my voice trembling. He turned, squinting through the shadows. "Probably just a decoration," he said. But even as he spoke, I knew it wasn't. The figure remained perfectly still, observing us, and the way it seemed to tilt its head slightly as we moved closer made my skin crawl. I grabbed the pumpkin quickly, not wanting to stare any longer. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run, but I forced myself to focus. The path back to the main area seemed longer than it had been before. Each step felt heavier, and every rustle of leaves made my heart jump. Then I heard it, a crack, sharp and sudden, like a branch snapping underfoot. I froze. Kevin didn't notice, but I knew the sound had come from the figure. I turned slowly, and my heart nearly stopped. It had moved, not like a person walking, not even like a person running. It glided, almost hovering over the leaves, silent and deliberate. My throat went dry. The figure was closer than before, its form outlined by the dimming sunlight. The trees behind it cast shadows that made it seem taller, more menacing, and its head tilted as if it were studying us, examining our every move. "Run!" I shouted, grabbing Kevin's arm. We bolted toward the main area, pumpkins bouncing in the wagon as we stumbled over roots and uneven ground. The sound of leaves crunching behind us wasn't like normal footsteps. It was too fast, too fluid, too inhuman. When we finally reached the open area, the families and laughter made me feel momentarily safe. I glanced back. The figure had stopped at the edge of the trees, motionless once more. It watched us, its presence heavy, almost tangible, and then, just like that, it vanished. We tried to laugh it off, convincing ourselves it was someone playing a prank, maybe a person hiding in the woods waiting to scare kids. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining the figure standing there, gliding silently over the leaves, watching, waiting. The way it moved was wrong, unnatural, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw it again, its thin, elongated frame, the way it tilted its head, the emptiness where its face should have been. A few days later, I searched online, hoping for an explanation, and that's when I found it. A short news report from someone else at the pumpkin patch. "Strange figures sighted in pumpkin patch," it read. "Late afternoon, near the woods. Witnesses report an unnerving presence." No description, just a report of a person moving unusually and silently. I wasn't imagining it. Someone else had seen it too. Halloween came, and the pumpkin patch returned to normal, filled with laughter and decorations. But for me, it was different. I couldn't look at the trees the same way. I couldn't walk past that area without imagining the figure watching, gliding silently among the shadows. Years later, I tried to return to the patch. I told myself it was childish fear, that there was no such thing as gliding figures in the woods. But as soon as I reached the edge where the trees began, my heart raced. The shadows seemed to move differently, curling toward me, shifting unnaturally. I left immediately. Even now, every October, when the leaves start falling and the air turns crisp, I remember that figure. The way it moved, the way it watched, the way it seemed to float without effort, as if gravity didn't apply to it. I tell the story to friends now, but they laugh. It was probably a person in a costume, they say, but they don't understand. It wasn't like any person I had ever seen. It wasn't like any Halloween costume. Its presence was wrong, unnatural, and it followed us without making a sound. I still see it sometimes, in the corner of my vision, in the shifting shadows of trees, in the reflection of windows late at night. And I know that if it wanted to, it could follow me anywhere. That pumpkin patch is no longer a place of fun or nostalgia. It's a place of memory, a place of fear, a place where the line between normal and supernatural blurred. And I learned that some things in the world are not meant to be explained, because some figures simply exist to watch and to follow.